thanks for everybody for joining us. We are having a candidates forum ahead of the March 4th elections, and finally got over some very annoying technical difficulties, which unfortunately is part of this, was part and parcel with our new technologies that we have today when we try to create a safe civic space for conversations like this. I would like to start by having the actual candidates introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about themselves and why they're running. So let's start with Suzanne.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Parent. I'm running for Richmond Town Clerk, and I've been here for nearly 30 years. I'm interested in continuing to make Richmond a great place. It is a wonderful place, and I'd love to be a part of it and just continue with that trend. Thank you.
Yes, so go right ahead,
Okay.
Katie. Yeah.
Hi, I am Katie Nelson. I've lived in Richmond for 20 years this year. I have 2 kiddos at Campbell's Hump Middle School, and I am really passionate about civic engagement and civic service. I am a member of the Mount Mansfield Union School District School Board. And so I'm on my second term doing that. That has really opened my eyes to the way that I can take community feedback and really make a positive impact on the lives of our students and our community members. And I'm also the chair of our Community Engagement Committee. So I work with the school board and trying to get some of our messages out to the broader community. I do love Richmond. I love the community that is just so rich and vast here, and I love being outdoors and taking advantage of all of the things that our town offers, and I feel really grateful that I could raise my family here. So that is, I'm running for Richmond Town Clerk, and I would feel really grateful to continue service of our community in that way.
I'm Bart Hill. I'm running for a 3-year term on the Select Board. I've lived in Richmond since 1993. The first early part of my time here, my contribution was coaching, I think it was 6 different sports over a number of years. And as my kids aged out of those sports, I generally aged out. I had a stint in T-ball after, like, my kids were grown up in 1 year. And for a while, that was kind of my contribution. And then I joined the Richmond Water Sewer Commission in 2013, the Select Board in 2016, and the Regional Planning Commission in 2016. And I'm motivated because I find this stuff interesting, including some of the challenges, some of which are more resolvable than others, and also giving back. The taxpayers and citizens subsidized my education to a very significant degree, and this is part of my payback.
I'm Caitlin Filkins. I'm running for the 2-year Select Board seat. Thank you. I've been in Richmond since 2020 with my family, and before that we were in Waterbury. I've been in Vermont for probably about 16 years now. And I'm running for Select Board because I have 2 young kids at home, and I have a family that's growing up here, and we love this community. We ended up here in 2020, and I can't imagine living anywhere else and raising my family anywhere else. And so as we get out of the very young children phase, we find ourselves with a little bit of time. And with that, I want to get back to volunteering. I have a long history of volunteering with communities and programs throughout Vermont, and it's time for me to take that back into the reins here. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity in running and participating in this town and this community even more so.
Great.
I'm a candidate too.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not on the sort of official piece, but I just wanted to introduce myself.
Should come up. Yeah.
Funny thing, I have two kids actually in a program downstairs that I'm going to retrieve in just a few minutes, and I'm holding seats for them. So I'll be back here.
If you want to be seen, though, you should be.
I see.
You
Okay,
should be
gotcha. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Allison Conant. I'm running uncontested, I believe, for a second term on the MMU SD School Board. I've been in town for about 15 years now. I am a management consultant and leadership advisor. Previously served in both the Shumlin administration and the early part of the Scott administration as the Director of Communications and Policy at the Agency of Agriculture. My family owns the dairy farm in town. You may have bought sweet corn or pumpkins from us. I'm really looking forward to another term on the school board. We have a lot to do. Certainly there's a lot of issues going on right now with education in the state. We have a really strong and vibrant district. Statewide, there's a lot of challenges, and of course we're impacted by that, so we're all sort of working through that together. I have been a member of the Clean Water Board, working very closely with the Agency of Natural Resources, so lots of experience in state government, both in professional and volunteer roles, and just excited to be here, and thank you all for coming tonight and taking part in this. It's great to see so many faces online and in the room, so thank you.
So I would like to throw it out to the audience who's patiently sat through our technical disturbances, I would say. And I would like to add that we do have some new ceiling mics, so you can test them out for us as well. So did anybody have a question, especially, looking at the clerk candidates, which is our only contested race? So Fran?
Sure. My question to both of the candidates for the town clerk is, what do you view and what do you know is the duties of the town clerk, and ways that you can, within the town clerk system, that you can learn more about the job of town clerk and how to advance in?
Yeah, and we'll give each candidate an opportunity to answer that. So maybe we'll start with Katie.
Okay, thank you for your question. So I think the things that I first know of town clerk are the things that I've learned from my experiences as a resident of Richmond, and going and talking with Linda about all of the nuances of everything from birth certificates to marriage licenses to dog licenses to land records and even liens and all of the technicalities of the job. But I think most importantly is that there is someone who serves as a resource in the town that is really the face of the town, somebody who can greet people with a smile in a positive way, somebody who may not always know the answer but can find that answer. And I know those resources come from the Secretary of State office, and that it's through that office and through the League of Cities and Towns that you can get resources to further your advancement in town clerkship. And I would really hope to take advantage of those resources. I'm a lifelong learner. This may be a little off topic, but my background is in education, and so I really like to be somebody who is highly knowledgeable about the things that I am going to be informing others about. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Well, from what I know of the position, is very, very much the same thing. It is the hub of the town. You're the face of the town. You're the greeter. You're the customer service person. You're the person that would help get people information. I know there's a network out there. If you didn't know the answer, you can find the answer. I actually have several friends within Chittenden County and outside of Chittenden County that I could also use as a resource. I know several of the people within the departments. I have very good skills at research, finding questions, finding answers to questions. Doing document preservation, things along those lines. I'm just trying to think of like the things that Linda has done, or in the previous positions. I'm just trying to think of the things that I have done. It's like you have to be a customer service person. There could be someone coming in that has a question but might be misinformed, and you have to give them information and or point them in the right direction. You might have to diffuse. You might, a lot works with a smile. You have to be accurate. You have to be organized, concise. There's a lot to it. I also love to learn. I went from a person, I'm probably a little bit older. I went from a person who didn't have a computer as a child, and my dad asked me what my first computer was at work, and I said, well, duh, Dad, it's a TAN computer, to now I can program surround sound in the house. My family can attest that I'm actually like a quasi-techie in the house. I love technology. Now, I love to learn all kinds of things. It doesn't matter if it's technology or everything from apps to a new sewing technique. I certainly love learning all kinds of things to do with the job. When I've been with the school district for now 20 years. I have pushed very hard for paraeducators to get education. Teachers get lots of education, and paras are lucky to get in-service, and I've pushed very hard for paraeducators to get more than just in-service, because I am also very interested in learning. I've taken a lot of things on my own time or on my own volunteer time. So there's a lot to this position. I can't say that I know, certainly I don't know everything, but I am very eager to learn.
So, Bart,
Can I ask a question of the town clerk?
you're right there.
And this is not without some element of potential self-interest. What support or assistance would you hope for from the town, the select board, or the former town clerk in onboarding into the position of town clerk?
So we can start with Suzanne. Yeah.
Well, I guess Linda would know best what we would need for information. When you walk into a job, you never really know. You don't know what you don't know. You're really hoping that people will give you the information that you need when you're walking in, be it there's a binder. I've been a trainer for several different jobs, and it can be very organized or it can be haphazard. So you really are hoping that people will have that information for you. And if not, then you're going to have to get it yourself and be resourceful at getting that and be okay with asking.
Yeah. And Katie, how about you? I'm sure that you've thought about Linda and all the years she's been there, and how you envision the best, path to being prepared.
Yeah, well, I found it. The first thing I did was call Linda and ask her if I could come in and meet with her and learn more about the position. And so sometime in January, I went in for a little over an hour, and she gave me a tour of the office and showed me where, the records are kept, and really gave me some insight into how the position operates. And so she assured me that she was really working on an organizational process that is essential to town clerk, because although there are lots of responsibilities and lots of ways to help people, there are procedures that you are required to follow by law. So even though, there may be things that I would like to see change or do differently than Linda, I feel great confidence in the fact that she knows what the people and the Secretary of State expect of that role. She knows that that's all laid out, and I would hope to learn from her while also accepting any training that is available through that position. I'm currently not employed, and so I have great flexibility with the beginning of this position to be able to learn from her as much as the town and budget allows for.
Well, we have an audience, so does anybody else have a clerk-related question they'd like to put to the candidates? Jeff?
I was just trying to look this up. So actually, I kind of like it for all four of them in a sense. It's kind of the flip side to Bard's question. Are we hoping, and I would assume you are, I'm wondering if the select board is, or hoping or planning to hire Linda as a consultant to onboard a new town clerk, because she knows a lot, and it would seem that would cost some money. I don't know if it was in the budget. Even if it's not in the budget, it would be a worthwhile expense, it seems to me.
Okay, so it seems like a question for for Bard.
Well, and how I'd be
And
curious.
Caitlin, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I can.
Sorry, go ahead,
I can
Caitlin.
take a stab as much as I know you're going to know
Go for it.
best. But I did attend the last select board meeting online, and I have been attending several of those select board meetings and trying to understand the conversations to date so that I can be informed. And I do know that this was discussed in the last meeting of if that we should have a contract for Linda for a certain period of time for transition. And I think what we got to, or what you all got to, was that it would be dependent on the candidates and what they wanted, and if that would be helpful, as well as looking at the budget and so forth. So,
What you said. I would add, we also said, let's put an agreement in writing that at least gives a shape to the duration and the reimbursement, so there's some sort of framework. But also in that discussion in this room, we were conscious of staying in our lane, that the town clerk is an independently elected official. So we'd be willing to support that person, whoever it is. And we have that sort of ready and available, or will shortly. But then it's also, as you described, it's up to the new town clerk to describe what they want and for how long, within a certain constraint, but to help that onboarding. During that discussion, there are folks who were in the room who said past transitions were not always smooth. It was like an example of somebody walked out of the room and
Lock the vault.
like dropped the mic, locked the vault, and left. And so pointed to that as a less than successful transition from the past, and that we would hope for a more collegial and or supportive transition to the degree that the next town clerk wants that.
And I have a question about the vault. We always hear about the vault, and some of us have been in there to borrow carts or, find something. So what is your, personal experience with the vault, and what would you like to learn more about? And I'm looking at Suzanne, so we could start with you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've been in the vault for keys and whatnot with Linda, and it's been on a need-to-know basis, which I think is perfect. I don't need to know everything, kind of like school is. You are told what you need to know, basically like staying in your lane with the confidentiality. So there's a lot I would like to learn about what happens in the vault.
And how about you, Katie?
Sure. I think speaking back to that time, that I just was training a little bit, or getting an idea a little bit of what the job would really entail. That was the first time that I was actually in the vault. I felt like it was an amazing resource for the records of this town, going back so far, and even, you know, back to when people were mortgaging cows for tractors. So that was all revealing to me. I feel like it's a sacred place where the heart of our town and the records and the history of our town all are. I also know that it's a place where, like, people need permission to enter the vault, and so that's something that I think is taken seriously, and again with confidentiality on certain issues. But I feel like it's someplace, it shouldn't be mystical, and people should feel like when there's information in the vault that they need to access, that is my job to allow that access. And I know that there are certain amounts of time that a town clerk is allotted to make sure that those things happen for our residents.
And I found it interesting following around Linda the last elections, like all day. I was lucky enough to be able to film her the entire day with complete access. It was amazing. And I was just curious if anyone had a question related to elections. That's kind of a big town clerk role that you might have for our candidates. Does anybody have something election or ballot related? Linda does know a lot about those details that are involved. So Lisa.
Yeah, question for the two clerk candidates. The election is, I've been on the voting end of an election. I've also been on one of the Board of Civil Authority members, so I get to count ballots and make sure they're properly filled out and so forth. Everything I know was taught to me by Linda, so I'm not saying I know very much because it wasn't very long training, but the amount of work that the clerk is responsible for and that has to be done within a certain period of time, election day. There's no second day, there's no 25 hours a day or anything like that. Have you ever been in a job like that? Have you been in a setting like that? I'd like to hear your kind of your history of skills that might match up with that. And I guess, Suzanne?
I would say the closest thing that I would have, like as far, it sounds like deadlines, there, yes, there's, it will sound funny, and if no one's done it, there's time documentation, state and federal. There's a very much a time deadline for that within our school district because there's auditors that come. And so things have to be done very accurately, precisely, and there are procedures that have to be followed, and each line of every employee involved with special education has to be looked at with children. And anyways, so it's very detailed, and there's a lot of rules. Like there's binders that you have to know. So anyways, that would be the closest thing that I would have. Yeah, it's a lot of information.
I will say I feel slightly remiss that I didn't answer your question with the responsibilities of town clerk being certifying the elections, probably the most important responsibility. I think that the experience that I have that reminds me the most of that is my former job as a curator for Burlington City Arts. That position has a different perspective on how it relates to elections, in the sense that we had a deadline in the sense that a gallery opening was happening at a certain time at a certain place featuring a certain artist, and you had an installation for that. And so even though the work behind the scenes would happen weeks beforehand, the week leading up to that would sometimes require 60 hours of work from each individual that was committed to making that project happen. And as time ticked along, you had nothing but to produce for that deadline because you already had things printed, you already had press releases, you already had a huge celebration that would be, a gallery opening is not that dissimilar from what has to go into having the public available for voting in the organizational aspects of that. So I think from my work experience, that's the thing that is the most relatable to sort of putting on a huge public gathering that, you only have so much time to accomplish and have to be dedicated to see that through.
Great. And I apologize to our friends online, but for Zoom bombing related things, if you care to ask a question, you can email it to the MMC TV general email account. For now, we're just sticking to the actual human beings in the room because we know who they are. So if, do we have another clerk-related question? And I will definitely boost my Zoom security settings for the next one of these, and I really apologize to everybody for that. Do we have a question? Oh, Jeff has another question. Yeah.
It's okay if I ask another question.
Yeah.
I was on the select board for a couple of years, and one of the things that one of our responsibilities is to do the budget and figure out a capital plan and set aside reserve funds for various different things. One of the things that we set aside money, and I believe we have quite a bit of it actually, in a reserve fund to digitize town records. I can't remember, Bart, but you probably do. I think it's quite a bit, and I don't know if Linda was able to actually pull together a plan to digitize the records. Can you talk about how you might put together a proposal to the select board of how to spend the money and how you might go about digitizing our town records?
Sure. Should I go first?
Yep.
I think I may not know how specifically to do that, but modernization of this position is a huge goal of mine. I know that there are definitely constraints that I'm not aware of as far as some of the legalities of things, but I definitely think, I know as a resident that we use a ton of paper in that position. So I would be psyched to digitize records. I would find it really interesting to be able to even to see those records. I actually, this is so long ago, but when I was in high school, I worked with a historical society to digitize their collection, scan all of their photographs, just because things start to disintegrate after time, and it's really important to be able to save those things and to make them available for more audiences. So I would definitely work to put a proposal together. I'd be very interested in doing that, but I don't really know the ins and outs of that. Sorry.
No, don't let me interrupt. I'm just going to, could you let the top person in?
Oh, I will try. I'm scared. Okay. The Judy McVicker?
That's my wife's name.
Okay. Here we go.
Okay.
Jeff, I would say something very similar. I've been in the role where I've had done that a couple of times, scanning paper records to digital records, and a couple of positions that I've had at the dental office. They went from all paper to all digital, and that was their first time doing it, and they said hello, basically the same thing that you all had said. Someone had handed the keys, walked out, and said, here's the job, and good luck with your electronic records. Anyway, so It was very exciting to figure out how to do that. And there are so many applications out there right now that it would be exciting to have records available to the public and on our website and various places. And I think it would be just like, it would be smoother and so much easier for our town reports too.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, that's from
Okay.
Aaron Farr.
Okay. Yeah, so we have a question from Aaron Farr, who's on the Water Sewer Commission. With elections getting more impassioned, how do you feel about running elections where inevitably some part of the population will have opposing views? And this is a clerk question. Linda has always been silent about her political views, and I respect her very much. So I see you both nodding. You've thought about this. Let's start with Katie.
So I know that this position is to serve all members of our community, regardless of their political affiliation. And I feel like I have been really practiced in that through my role as a school board member, where I listen to everybody and I look for policy. I look for how things have already been created to support all people. And so I would always serve to do this job in that way. I definitely also feel like I, as a school board member, receive a lot of negative feedback that I have to acknowledge and listen and look for the real message and answer what people are actually asking and looking for. So I'm a very patient person. I don't rattle easily when it comes to things that may be more heated, such as the political nature of the elections. And so I would really hope to approach the role in that way. I think that my viewpoints, and people who know me and are my friends and community know that, but that's not something that informs how I would serve the town of Richmond.
How about you, Suzanne? How would you work to have this objectivity, which is really required of the role?
I think the position should remain 100% neutral, and everyone who comes in to vote should feel comfortable coming in. It shouldn't be politicized in any way. I think it's a good thing that no one knows how Linda feels, and that's the way a clerk's position should be. People should come in, feel comfortable voting, and not worry about what other people are thinking. They should come in and vote their piece and feel good about that.
And I will open it up again for questions out there. I don't see any emailed questions unless Bard gets another text. Do we have questions for the clerk candidates, but also for select board candidates? Fran has something.
Select board, our new person, Caitlin. I was on the select board for a number of years, and I was chair for way too many of those. And one thing I used to get frustrated about with the other select board members was lack of preparation for meetings. And what it required was that at that time was the town administrator would prepare material for the meetings. And it required the select board members to go in early, not the day of the meeting, to go in earlier, during the week to get that material. Do you feel that you have the time to really prepare for the meetings in advance?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. I know that I think Josh still does prepare stuff for the select board to read beforehand. So I would have time before the meetings to look into those and make sure that I am ready for the meeting. In my day job, I do not like showing up to a meeting that I can't actively participate in, or I am not fully versed in the subject at hand. I think it's really important if you're going to spend your time and commit your time to doing something that you are fully committed to doing that and understand what you are talking about at that meeting. Additionally, I do have 2 young children, which does take up a lot of my time. However, I need something for me too, and I need to use my brain in an adult way in addition to being a mom. So I think that this it will lend itself to that part of my life where I'm able to be a professional and learn what needs to happen at that meeting to actively participate.
Yes.
Another select board question. So for Caitlin and Lauren. So for some time I've been vocal about a culture of unethical conduct by members of the town board, including numerous and blatant conflicts of interest. To date, I filed 2 separate complaints following the process outlined in our town's code of ethics. One of those complaints has been substantiated by the select board, the other is still under review. During the review of one of my complaints, the town official that was the subject of the complaint made false and disparaging comments about me. And another town official connected to the complaint accused me of weaponizing our town's ethics rules.
Could you identify yourself?
Sure, I'm Bradley Holt. Yep. So prior to filing these official complaints, I was also demeaned, yelled at, and slandered by town officials connected with these ethical concerns. So my question is, it's not hard to imagine how this could dissuade someone from speaking up when they witness unethical behavior. So my question for you is, how do you intend to promote a culture where people are free to speak up without fear of retaliation by town officials specifically when they witness something that they perceive as wrong?
Okay. So we'll start with you since
Sure.
maybe you can give some history with this and an explanation for this.
I have seen, both in my experience in town government and state government, people wrestle with this and perform some better than others. It has been clear to me throughout my career and throughout my tenure here that sometimes people with whom I disagree, or the select board or another member disagrees, still have good ideas. And there is a tendency in humans, I think, just based on cognitive dissonance, that they tend to, if they don't like what the person said about one thing, they start to discount what they say about everything, which is a human cognitive pattern. I think it's an act of will for us as individuals and organizations to overcome that and welcome comments. There are extremes, like earlier today, that we experienced that are not helpful or productive, but my personal experience is those are really far out, like we experienced today. Some of the other folks who've been on the select board here in the audience experience people who were angry about certain things on a given day, but might actually have a good idea or come up with a better idea. I believe that as groups, we tend to come up with better solutions than we do as individuals. That's the point of sort of honest discussion and debate. And as part of that, you have to accept differences of opinion. In terms of the select board deliberations themselves, a lot of this hinges on the behavior of the chair, who then is in a position of encouraging or discouraging things. I have experienced during my time here, at times chairs have done that more effectively and sometimes less effectively. I've seen times where the chair, him or herself, has actually thrown gas on the fire, if you will. Like somebody's starting to be confrontive or abrasive, and they just make it worse. As opposed to de-escalation, they escalate the situation. That's unfortunate. It's awkward given our role as separately elected officials that we can give feedback to each other. But other than pretty extreme examples on the select board itself, tell people like that's beyond the pale. I know at the Regional Planning Commission, we just went through a code of conduct for both staff and members of the commission who are appointed by the select board, and had this long discussion about when it's pretty far out there, but there was an example of a member of a commission on another county where they were asked to leave, and then resigned because of pretty egregious and offensive behavior. In the ideal world, people self-regulate. When it's volunteers, appointed staff who are not directly supervised, the boundaries are somewhat challenging, and it then becomes conversations about the appropriate way to engage with citizens. It is clearly not in the interest of the town for members of the select board, town employees, or other officials on boards and commissions to dismiss or deride citizens. And it's not that the opportunity or the instinct might never occur. People, like as individuals, we can be offended or get angry, but it is our job in this role or in those roles is to restrain ourselves. And so we have conversations about that with both the group and with individuals about that. And I think the challenge for the select board is, when does something approach the point where somebody should be asked to leave? And when is it like corrective action? Having supervised dozens of people in my career, I think I've only helped 2 people exit stage left. Other people, it's been corrective action and improving behavior and saying, these are the limits you have to operate in. But I'll admit, I find it personally challenging as a member of the select board to control the behavior of other folks. I have pointed out to folks on other boards and commissions reminders about open public meeting law, like you can't be sending these emails back and forth to each other on this topic. That has to be an agenda item for an open public meeting, which I think of as similar behavior, that we have to have boundaries. That a conflict of interest in which we have conflict doesn't necessarily mean conflict of interest, but that is another example where the conflict of opinion or interest can turn into an actual conflict of interest that's prohibited or needs disclosure, and then a decision by the board or commission on which that person sits. I will say I have not been happy in multiple settings when I've heard people disparage citizens, whether in public or private. That, you know, I think our behavior colors itself and reinforces itself to the degree that you think of somebody as less worthy or dismissively and talk about them that way in private. It tends to influence our behavior and thinking in public, which I think is unfortunate. And it speaks also to why I think that is an issue of self-regulation first. And the real guardrails are, when has somebody gone beyond the boundaries where we need to intervene in a pretty formal way? That's probably not a great answer, but that's my answer.
We could listen to you a lot longer talking about that. I think that was, but we'll also ask Caitlin to weigh in on this about the code of ethics of the select board, and maybe throw it to the clerk candidates too, because I'm sure there's things they could say about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was on the last meeting, and so I did attend all of that and see that meeting happening and that conversation that was happening as well. So I do understand that we were in a state that we had the Richmond Code of Ethics, and we've now moved to the state Code of Ethics. And I will be getting very familiar with that to understand all the in-depth pieces of what is in that Code of Ethics, because I think that is a driving force behind how we act as board members and how we act as townspeople who are working with each other. You know, at the end of the day, I have had a lot of experience in a very emotionally driven industry, which the automotive industry is extremely emotionally driven, and there are no holds on how people talk to each other. I've had to, I've been yelled at several times by many people aggressively about the smallest things. And I've learned over time to keep my calm and to not take it personally and to be able to mediate as best that I can so that the voices in the room are heard, and the actual message behind what the conversation is about comes out, and we can have a real conversation about that piece versus the emotions that lay on top of it. I have had crucial conversations training and other mediator trainings as well, so I think I can lend a good voice to the room when it comes to not just issues around ethics, but issues where there is controversy or there is emotions laid on top of a subject that we're tackling. And I think the ethical piece becomes an even larger layer of emotions because it really is, as we saw in the last meeting, it is where you are personally coming with something that you have seen as not okay and not following the ethics, and the other person is coming with their weight of emotion. So I think that is a very good example of that, and there will probably be others as well.
Over here, did Katie or Suzanne, did you have something you want to weigh in related to the code of ethics and how you'd see that would apply? I mean, we did talk about being neutral, but beyond that, in the town clerk's role.
I did not see that last select board meeting. It sounds very unfortunate. I can speak to our board that we review each year. We review our code of ethics. We've reviewed our mission, vision, conflict of interest, and I think it's good to review those. Keep those in the forefront of your mind because there could be pieces that you miss. And I think sometimes when you're misbehaving or you speak out of turn, if someone, because I see it a lot with children, even I think peer to peer, if someone just calls you out on it, and I don't mean that in a negative way, just like, hey, we might have been able to say that a little bit differently, and it might be just enough to be like, oh, you're right, I that didn't come out right, or I totally said that wrong. Just bringing it to someone's attention could be a great learning moment, and reparations are made, and then we go forward, and hopefully we can turn it into a learning moment.
Katie?
Sure, I will speak a little bit again to my role as a school board member. I've had trainings on confidentiality and ethics, and we use policy governance, which is a really great framework that has trained all of us in really, I think, positive and clear communication with one another. We really know what our guardrails are, and that's because we are constantly reviewing the policies that guide us. Again, the confidentiality piece is a large part of that, and as I had mentioned before, having already served the public and been at the mercy of many different opinions, I think creating that personal connection and then getting to the real meat of the matter and going forth with guardrails and procedures is how I just really live by those things and try not to let emotions drive the way that we may solve problems.
And I see Allison here also from the school board. Did anybody have, in the room, any MMUUSD? I mean, there's a lot going on in education right now. As an understatement, did anybody have any school board related questions for other? Jeff? Yep.
Am I talking too much?
I don't see any other hands, so it's all yours.
So have you been able to review any of the governor's or the Secretary of Education's proposals on, and how do you feel about them, and what do you think? How would it affect our district if any of that came to pass?
We have a long way to go, I think, before we get to the point where we're really looking at viable options. I think the legislature and the governor right now are so far apart that I think anything's gained. Our district, I feel really confident in our district. We have the best district in the state. But the problems statewide are so endemic, and they're driven by population challenges and demographic challenges. We've got a lot of infrastructure that is aging. So I'm curious to track this. Obviously, there has to be some sort of change. I think everybody's in agreement that where we're at currently is unsustainable. But I'm trying to just sort of take a breath and not get too worked up about anything that's on the table right now, because I think, like I said, we're a long way from consensus or the ability to even predict what's going to come out the other end of this process. Does that answer your question?
Sort of. So, I guess I'm more curious. I think you're right that it's going to take a while for resolution. But I was curious how you felt about different aspects of the proposals that have been on the table. Things like school choice, reducing boards to what? I forget how many school boards we have in the state, but bring them down to 5.
Yeah.
It's really kind of even hard to imagine
It is really
how that
hard to
would
imagine, right? Yeah.
do it. But I'm curious how you felt about these proposals.
Like, do you have a specific question?
School choice. My understanding of one of the latest proposals was that school choice would be open to all schools, including private and public schools. And I'm curious how you feel about that.
Yeah. So, as a representative for MMU, I'm really focused on our district and our kids. And so I can't speak to what's happening in the far reaches of the state. I know there's some families that are very challenged to get their kids the kind of opportunities that are going to prepare them for life in this date and time, in terms of course offerings, in terms of career readiness. So I acknowledge that there's areas of the state where there's a real limit to the opportunities that those kids have. I feel like in our district, our kids have a great variety of options that they can look into. I'd love to see more around career readiness. I'd love to see more alternative options for kids who don't kind of fit right into the the lane that's currently offered to them. But I think that we shouldn't be doing things that divert resources from our public schools. I think it's
where
really.
do you think private schools come into that discussion? Part of my understanding is part of the discussion is that the proposal to look at private schools being funded by public dollars.
Yeah. I mean, I think, at this point it's a lot of speculation. Like I said, there's some high-level proposals on the table. I don't know enough about the specifics of those proposals. As I said, I'm really invested in public schools and public education. That's why I'm on the MMU school board, because I think public schools are our best chance for creating the kinds of citizens that we want to have tomorrow. It's an equalizer in a lot of ways, and when we start looking at different opportunities, I think there's a lot of factors that influence who's able to pursue those opportunities that make things pretty uneven. But I'm not going to come out with some sort of statement about what the governor's doing at this point. I think it's premature, actually.
Thank you.
Okay, so I did promise that everyone gets the chance to have the last word. Well, not everyone will, but one at a time, the last word. So if you could just maybe cap up. I don't know if there were any more questions here. I don't see them online, on the email. Maybe we could just take it in order, and if you could just, summarize maybe if there's something that you were not able to talk about that you will like to add.
Well, I would be very honored to serve the town of Richmond should I be elected town clerk. My roots run very deep here. My family is from here. I'm wearing my mother's class ring where she graduated from this building. I come from a service background. it just is in my nature. I love this town, and I would love to give back and continue to give back. I think I'd be a great fit for this position.
So I feel I'm really happy to have had the opportunity to be here tonight and speak with all of you and everyone online. I feel like I kind of stepped out into that civil service role in 2001 when I first ran for school board, and that has really enriched my life here in this town. I have really appreciated getting to know people that are beyond my social circle, which I feel like in today's day and age you can be really insular to the people and the media that you surround yourself. So being able to meet different people and really grow in my opinions and my viewpoints with this community has been really important to me. I have a work background that would really support this role. In my previous profession, I was the face of the organization. I greeted people who came in. I translated the art that people were seeing into really easily digestible information for people who may have otherwise been really unfamiliar with a wide variety of topics. And I also was an employee of the city of Burlington in that role. So I had a lot of experience working with the mayor's office as well. And so I would take a lot of those more clerical duties and my experience interacting with the community to this role. And so I think I feel like there's not much more to say, but I really appreciate everybody allowing me to even have this opportunity to run for town clerk, and I would feel really grateful to have the position.
Thanks. Well, I think it's a great town. That's part of the goal of the select board, is to help keep it being a great town into the future as the environment and demographics and the world changes around us, sometimes more rapidly than we might hope. I also think the select board tends to be functional because it is 5 people sharing different opinions and at its best welcoming different input from citizens who can't always get their way, but in any case their input is valuable and necessary. If you have input for the select board for me or my successors, I would encourage you to reach out. If you have yet to take a turn on the select board, I would encourage you to contemplate it as service to the town, because I think it is a valuable place to see what happens in the town and serve both the present and the future.
And thank you for putting this on, Angelike. This has been lovely, and thanks for everyone and the questions. I think they've been really insightful, and I'm just honored to be here and to have the opportunity to speak to everyone and to be on the ballot. So thank you for that. And I think that the one piece that I will conclude with here is that my job, what I do for my day job, is I am a product leader in the AI space in automotive. I have technical background to help in whichever way I can with that. And then additionally, the core of my job is really to translate between the really smart people who are doing the coding and the people who are running the business. And I think that will translate really effectively here, to be able to connect the right people and use the right resources to make the right decisions, to listen and learn and make an impact. So with that, and what Bard has said as well, I think there's something to be said about the makeup of the 5 members of the board, and I think I would complement and diversify the board in a really effective way. So,
Great. And Allison in the back.
I just want to say thanks to everybody who came out here and everybody who's online. I'm running unopposed unless there's a write-in candidate, so it's Heather Chadwick. and 2 of our select board members are running unopposed. So I appreciate the folks that have come out here, and I'd just like to see us have a little bit more engagement, right? So I'm not certainly speaking to anybody in this room because you're all here today, but we all have an obligation to perform a civic duty, and we can all carve out some little space of our life, I think, to do that in some way. So I'm feeling privileged to have that opportunity here on the school board, and who knows what the next election will look like if any of that redistricting happens, but I'm excited to continue on the school board, and I think we need more people coming to meetings, and we have a budget for the school board that's going to need to be approved on town meeting day. So I would encourage everybody to come to the next budget information session and educate yourselves. I will put a little plug in for our administration, who have been very frugal in developing our budget this time around, but we are facing some statewide factors in ways related to how headcount is calculated. That's thrown some of the numbers a little bit askew. So we'll need to really educate the public and make sure people are taking a close look at the fine print in this year's budget, because I personally feel it's pretty fiscally responsible, but there are some variables outside our control that are going to make this a difficult thing for the public to wrap their head around. Even as a board member, I think we're challenged a little bit. And that goes back to Jeff's question about what's happening statewide. Education funding is very complex. We need to get this into some more simple form where Heather, Katie and I and Tara are not sitting for weeks at a time listening to budget presentations and still just very unclear about how some of these numbers even come out the other end. So thank you for the opportunity to share that little piece here tonight.
And I would like to thank all the candidates for taking part. On behalf of MMC TV, we really value this civic space, and it's much harder to build and sometimes easy to destroy, as we saw at the beginning. But thank you all for sticking with it. And apologies to the people online for not being as involved, and we didn't let everybody in once we had a problem. So we'll work on that. And yeah, thanks to everybody for this great conversation, which we will share so that more people can